The sun was bright over the wide desert. Wind moved across the sand like waves in the sea. It was hot and dry, and there was nothing around except old rocks and silent hills. But deep under that sand, something very old was sleeping. Something forgotten. Tarin was a young man who liked old stories and lost things. He lived near the edge of the desert, where only a few people stayed. His home was small, made of stone and metal, and powered by solar energy. Tarin spent most of his days walking through the desert, searching for pieces of history with his drone and scanner. He had read about the old days when humans traveled through space and built great machines, but that was 500 years ago. Now, Earth was quiet. People lived in small groups. No one really talked about space anymore. They just tried to live simple lives. One morning, Tarin woke early. The sky was clear, and the wind was soft. He packed water, food, and his scanning drone, then started walking toward the northern dunes, an area he had never searched before. He had a feeling, deep inside, that something was waiting. By noon, the sun was high. Tarin stopped to rest. He sent the drone up into the air. It flew quietly, scanning the sand below. After a while, it beeped. Something was showing up on its scanner, something large and not natural. Tarin looked at the screen. The shape was strange, big, smooth, and deep under the sand. Tarin ran to the spot the drone had marked. The sand there was hot, but he didn't stop. He used his tools to dig. At first, he only saw dust and rock. Then, after an hour, his shovel hit something hard metal. He cleaned the area more. A smooth, silver corner appeared. It looked like part of a large machine or vehicle. It didn't look like anything built in the last 100 years. As Tarin brushed the sand away, the metal started to shine. Suddenly, a line of lights appeared on its surface. A soft hum came from below. Then, a small round door slowly opened. Tarin jumped back, surprised. A voice came from inside the opening. It was calm and clear. "Good to serve you again, Admiral." 500 years later, Tarin stared at the door, too shocked to speak. The voice sounded like it knew him. But how? He was not an admiral. He was just a desert explorer. The air around the door was cool. It felt different, like something from another world. After a few minutes, the voice spoke again. "Please come aboard. You are recognized as the genetic heir of Admiral Raylan. Welcome home." Tarin slowly stepped forward. He looked inside. A ramp had lowered into the sand, leading into a dark hallway. Lights along the walls began to glow soft blue and white. The hallway was clean, quiet, and not damaged at all. It didn't look like it had been buried for hundreds of years. Tarin took a deep breath and walked in. Inside, the walls were smooth and silver. Symbols and lights moved across the panels. It was cold, but not in an unfriendly way. He saw chairs, control panels, and screens that looked far more advanced than anything he had ever seen. The ship felt alive. It wasn't just metal and wires, it seemed to remember. "I am Voro." The voice said again, "Ship AI of the Halcyon Wind, my systems have been in sleep mode for 500 years. You have awakened me. This vessel is ready for command." Tarin looked around, unsure of what to say. I'm not an admiral," he said quietly. "I don't know anything about flying a ship." "You carry the DNA of Admiral Raylan," Voro replied. "The system recognizes you. You are now acting commander of this ship." Tarin sat down in a chair that lit up as soon as he touched it. A small screen rose in front of him. It showed a map of Earth, of the solar system, and of places far beyond. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The stars, the old human colonies, they were all here. "What happened?" Tarin asked. "Why is this ship here? Why in the desert?" Voro's voice softened. 500 years ago, Earth was part of a great human network across the stars. Admiral Raylan commanded this ship during that time, but the network fell. Communication between planets broke. Colonies were lost. Earth went silent. Admiral Raylan gave the order to hide the ship and wait. "Wait for what?" Tarin whispered. "For his return. Or for someone like him," Voro said. Tarin felt a strange connection to this place. He had always wondered why he felt different from the others in his town, why he loved space and history so much. Maybe now he understood. He spent hours walking through the ship. Every room had a purpose. There were sleeping areas, control rooms, storage pods, and even a small garden chamber that had been empty for centuries. The ship was huge, but it wasn't empty. It was waiting. As night fell outside, Taran sat near a window in the ship and looked at the stars above the desert. The same stars his ancestors once traveled toward. The voice of Voros spoke again, this time softer. The universe remembers Earth. It waits for your return. Taran closed his eyes and whispered, maybe it's time we remembered it too. Let me know if you like part 2 in the same style, 1,000 words, third person, simple English, no violin. The sun was bright over the wide desert. Wind moved across the sand like waves in the sea. It was hot and dry, and there was nothing around except old rocks and silent hills. But deep under that sand, something very old was sleeping, something forgotten. Taran was a young man who liked old stories and lost things. He lived near the edge of the desert, where only a few people stayed. His home was small, made of stone and metal, and powered by solar energy. Taran spent most of his days walking through the desert, searching for pieces of history with his drone and scanner. He had read about the old days when humans traveled through space and built great machines, but that was 500 years ago. Now, Earth was quiet. People lived in small groups. No one really talked about space anymore. They just tried to live simple lives. One morning, Taran woke early. The sky was clear, and the wind was soft. He packed water, food, and his scanning drone, then started walking toward the northern dunes, an area he had never searched before. He had a feeling, deep inside, that something was waiting. By noon, the sun was high. Taran stopped to rest. He sent the drone up into the air. It flew quietly, scanning the sand below. After a while, it beeped. Something was showing up on its scanner, something large and not natural. Taran looked at the screen. The shape was strange, big, smooth, and deep under the sand. Taran ran to the spot the drone had marked. The sand there was hot, but he didn't stop. He used his tools to dig. At first, he only saw dust and rock. Then, after an hour, his shovel hit something hard, metal. He cleaned the area more. A smooth, silver corner appeared. It looked like part of a large machine or vehicle. It didn't look like anything built in the last 100 years. As Taran brushed the sand away, the metal started to shine. Suddenly, a line of lights appeared on its surface. A soft hum came from below. Then, a small round door slowly opened. Taran jumped back, surprised. A voice came from inside the opening. It was calm and clear. Good to serve you again, Admiral. 500 years later, Taran stared at the door, too shocked to speak. The voice sounded like it knew him. But how? He was not an admiral. He was just a desert explorer. The air around the door was cool. It felt different, like something from another world. After a few minutes, the voice spoke again. Please come aboard. You are recognized as the genetic heir of Admiral Rillen. Welcome home. Taran slowly stepped forward. He looked inside. A ramp had lowered into the sand, leading into a dark hallway. Lights along the walls began to glow soft blue and white. The hallway was clean, quiet, and not damaged at all. It didn't look like it had been buried for hundreds of years. Taran took a deep breath and walked in. Inside, the walls were smooth and silver. Symbols and lights moved across the panels. It was cold, but not in an unfriendly way. He saw chairs, control panels, and screens that looked far more advanced than anything he had ever seen. The ship felt alive. It wasn't just metal and wires, it seemed to remember. I am Voro. The voice said again, Ship AI of the Halcyon Wind, my systems have been in sleep mode for 500 years. You have awakened me. This vessel is ready for command. Taran looked around, unsure of what to say. I'm not an admiral, he said quietly. I don't know anything about flying a ship. You carry the DNA of Admiral Rillen. Voro replied, the system recognizes you. You are now acting commander of this ship. Taran sat down in a chair that lit up as soon as he touched it. A small screen rose in front of him. It showed a map of Earth, of the solar system, and of places far beyond. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The stars, the old human colonies, they were all here. What happened? Taran asked. Why is this ship here? Why in the desert? Voro's voice softened. 500 years ago, Earth was part of a great human network across the stars. Admiral Raylan commanded this ship during that time, but the network fell. Communication between planets broke. Colonies were lost. Earth went silent. Admiral Raylan gave the order to hide the ship and wait. Wait for what? Taran whispered. For his return. Or for someone like him, Voro said. Taran felt a strange connection to this place. He had always wondered why he felt different from the others in his town, why he loved space and history so much. Maybe now he understood. He spent hours walking through the ship. Every room had a purpose. There were sleeping areas, control rooms, storage pods, and even a small garden chamber that had been empty for centuries. The ship was huge, but it wasn't empty. It was waiting. As night fell outside, Taran sat near a window in the ship and looked at the stars above the desert. The same stars his ancestors once traveled toward. The voice of Voro spoke again, this time softer. The universe remembers Earth. It waits for your return. Taran closed his eyes and whispered. Maybe it's time we remembered it too. Let me know if you like part 2 in the same style, 1,000 words, third person, simple English, no violin. Taran sat quietly inside the ship, still trying to understand everything. Just hours ago, he was walking in the desert like any normal day. Now, he was inside a starship from 500 years ago. The walls around him glowed softly, and the lights followed. His movement, it didn't feel cold or scary. It felt peaceful, like the ship was truly alive. The voice of Voro, the ship's AI, spoke again. Would you like a tour of the halcyon wind? Taran nodded. Yes, show me everything. A gentle light appeared on the floor, guiding him through the wide hallways. The walls had smooth panels with soft blue lights blinking in rhythm. As they walked, Voro explained each room. First, they came to the bridge, the heart of the ship. It was shaped like a circle with a large screen showing a sky full of stars. Even though the ship hadn't flown for 500 years, everything looked clean and ready. This is where Admiral Raylan used to sit, said Voro. He would guide the ship and speak with the other captains across space. Taran walked to the chair. In the center, it didn't look like a throne. It was simple, strong, and surrounded by glowing screens. He didn't sit in it yet. It felt too important. Did my ancestor really fly this ship? Taran asked. Yes, Voro replied. He was known for his calm mind and strong heart. He believed Earth would rise again one day. That's why he hid the halcyon wine to keep its knowledge safe. Taran looked at the screen again. So many stars were out there. He felt small, but he also felt something else, hope. Voro guided him to the memory room, a space filled with glowing cubes. These are history logs, said Voro. They carry the voice and memories of Admiral Raylan. Taran picked up one cube. It began to play a short message. A man's voice filled the room. If this is heard, the voice said, then I am gone. Earth may be lost, but not forever. Someone will find this ship, someone with our blood. If you are listening, don't be afraid. The stars still remember us. Taran placed the cube back. His hands were shaking a little. He didn't feel like a hero, but maybe that didn't matter. He had found the ship. Maybe that was enough for now. Next, Voro took him to the living quarters. The rooms were simple but neat. Small beds, storage spaces, and personal screens filled the area. Some old clothes still hung in closets, untouched for centuries. There was a small kitchen too, with stored food packs that were still fresh thanks to the preservation system. This ship could carry a small crew, Voro said. But you are alone. Do you wish to bring someone aboard? Taran shook his head. Not yet. I need to understand more. He walked to the window and looked outside. The desert still stretched for miles. The sun was now setting, painting the sky orange and gold. The ship, half buried in sand, looked like a giant sleeping creature finally waking up. Why did humanity stop exploring space? Tarin asked. There was no single reason, said Voro. There were too many places to reach. People lost connection. Some colonies failed. Others grew quiet. And Earth, our home, became tired. One day, the stars went silent. Tarin felt sad. All that history, all those dreams, and now only this ship remained as a reminder. But deep inside, he also felt something strong, a desire to change things. Is the ship still able to fly? He asked. Yes, said Voro. Engines are in working condition. Fuel is enough for short-range flight. Longer missions will need resupply. Tarin smiled a little. Then maybe it's time to fly again. He returned to the bridge. This time, he sat in the center chair. The screens around him came to life. A small circle glowed in front of him, waiting for a voice command. Tarin paused, then said, Start systems. Lights around the bridge grew brighter. The floor rumbled softly as the ship's core engine woke up. A low hum filled the room. It wasn't loud, but it was powerful. The ship was ready, systems online. Voro confirmed, all stations functioning. Awaiting flight command, Tarin leaned back. He wasn't sure what to do next. The stars were calling, but he didn't know where to go. Do we have a map? He asked. A hologram of the galaxy appeared above him. Small dots marked old human colonies, most now dark. One dot blinked faintly. It was near the edge of known space. What's that one? Tarin pointed. That is Beacon Planet, said Voro. It was the last colony to send a signal before. The silence began. We lost contact with them 187 years ago. Can we reach it? Tarin asked. Double quotes, yes. Voro replied, with careful planning and one fuel stop. But I advised preparation. Tarin looked at the blinking dot. It was far, but it wasn't unreachable. Let's prepare, he said. We'll visit this Beacon Planet. If they remember Earth, maybe we can bring back more than just stories outside. The stars grew brighter as night covered the desert. The halcyon wind glowed softly, like a candle in the dark, and inside, a young man sat quietly, ready to follow the path his ancestor had left behind. The ship gently entered the orbit of Beacon Planet. Below, the world looked peaceful. Green forests covered the land, wide rivers shined under the sunlight, and tall mountains stood like guardians. Tarin watched from the window in silence. It was hard to believe this world still existed when so many others had gone quiet. Atmosphere is safe, said Voro. The ship's AI. Temperature stable. Life signs are strong. Population is estimated at 300,000. Tarin was surprised. That was more people than he had seen in one place in his whole life. Are they humans like us? He asked. Yes, Voro replied. Beacon Planet was once a human colony. Their systems may have changed over time, but they share our origin. As the ship moved closer, a small craft flew up from the surface. It circled the halcyon wind for a few minutes, scanning and observing. Then a message came through. Please follow us to the landing area. You are granted a temporary welcome. Tarin felt nervous, but also hopeful. He was going to meet people from a world that had survived the silence. People who might remember Earth. He followed the small craft through the clouds and into the bright sky of Beacon Planet. The landing area was simple but clean. A wide platform made of shining stone stood near a forest. As the halcyon wind landed, the engines hummed softly and then powered down. Tarin took a deep breath. He wore a clean jacket, boots, and a small pack. He looked at himself in the mirror. He didn't look like an admiral. He looked like a traveler, but that was okay. He had come with peace. You will be safe, Voro said calmly. I will keep communication open if you need anything. Tarin stepped out of the ship. The air was fresh and cool. Birds flew overhead. The sun felt warm on his face. A small group of people stood nearby, waiting. They wore light-colored clothes and simple badges on their sleeves. A woman stepped forward. She had short dark hair, kind eyes, and a calm voice. Welcome, she said. I'm Ima, member of the Council of Memory. We received your signal. Tarin gave a polite bow. I'm Tarin, from Earth. I have found this ship buried in our desert. It brought me here. Emma nodded. That ship is older than our oldest records. We knew it once traveled between the stars. But we didn't know if anyone from Earth would ever return. Tarin was invited to walk with them. The group led him to a quiet building near the landing area. It had tall glass walls and soft lights. Inside, there were long tables, maps, and old books. This is our Hall of Archives, Emma explained. We study history here, your history, our history. We keep it alive. Tarin looked around in wonder. Some of the books had images of Earth, drawings of old starships, and records of human colonies that no longer existed. Why did Beacon Planet survive when others didn't? Tarin asked. Emma smiled gently. When the Great Silence came, our leaders chose to close our sky. They shut down outside signals and focused on building a simple, strong society. No war, no fast expansion, just learning, farming, and memory. We did not forget Earth. We only waited. Tarin spent the whole day learning from the people of Beacon Planet. They showed him how they grew food, how they taught their children, and how they used clean energy to power their homes. Life here was quiet but full of meaning. That evening, Emma took Tarin to a small garden behind the archives. A stone stood in the middle with words carved in old Earth script. We remember the stars. We remember Earth. One day, they will return. Tarin touched the stone gently. Admiral Raylan believed Earth would rise again. He wanted this ship to be found and for someone to carry the light forward. Emma looked at him with thoughtful eyes. You are the first voice from Earth we have heard in 500 years. Some here fear change. Others feel hope. We are unsure which path to take. Tarin sat down on a bench nearby. I don't have all the answers. I'm not a leader. I just followed the signs. But I believe Earth still matters. I believe humans should know their past. And if possible, connect again. Emma nodded slowly. The council will decide. We must be careful. If we open to the stars again, we must do it with wisdom. Tarin agreed. That's fair. But maybe this time, we don't grow too fast. Maybe we grow together. He spent 2 more days on Beacon Planet. During that time, he shared Earth's current state with the council, how life had become small and simple, how people had forgotten the stars, and how finding the halcyon wind changed everything for him. In return, the people of Beacon showed him kindness and curiosity. Some offered him seeds to plant back on Earth. Others gave him books, tools, and stories to carry home. Finally, the council called him to the archives once more. A gentle elder named Maran, the oldest member, spoke. Tarin of Earth, we have made our choice. We will not open our skies fully. Not yet, but we will send a message, a light in the dark, a signal that Earth is not alone. Tarin smiled. That's all I hoped for. As he prepared to leave, Emma handed him a small crystal device. This holds our history, she said. Take it home. Let Earth remember us. Tarin thanked her deeply. As he boarded the halcyon wind once more, he looked back at Beacon Planet, bright, quiet, and full of life. Inside the ship, Voro greeted him. Ready to return? Tarin nodded. Yes. But this is not the end. It's just the beginning. The engines lit up again, and the ship rose gently into the sky. Behind him, Beacon Planet slowly faded into the distance. Ahead, Earth was waiting. The halcyon wind moved smoothly through space, heading back to Earth. The stars around it glowed softly, like old friends watching quietly. Tarin sat in the command chair, holding the crystal memory device Beacon Planet had given him. Inside, that small object was a full history of a forgotten world, stories, knowledge, and hope. Voro. The ship's AI spoke gently. Flight path steady, arrival at Earth in 2 days. Tarin looked out the window. It feels strange. He said, I went searching for old things in the desert, and now I'm bringing something new back home. Voro responded calmly. It is both old and new. Beacon Planet remembered Earth. Now Earth can remember them. As the ship traveled, Tarin spent time learning more from the crystal. When he placed it into the ship's reading panel, a soft blue light appeared. Holograms of people, cities, farms, and schools floated in the air. Their way of life was peaceful and full of meaning. They didn't build big towers or fast machines, but they had strong hearts and wise minds. Tarin took notes and made simple lessons that he could later share. He wanted the people of Earth to understand that the stars were not lost, they had simply been silent. Now it was time to listen again. On the second day, Earth came into view. From space, it looked beautiful. Blue oceans, green land, white clouds that still held life. But Tarin knew that life on the surface had changed. People lived in small villages and quiet towns. There were no large cities, no great machines. Space travel was a forgotten dream. As the ship entered the atmosphere, Tarin felt nervous. Would people believe him? Would they accept the knowledge he brought, or would they fear it? "Prepare landing," he said. The halcyon wind slowed down and gently touched the ground in the same desert where it had once slept for 500 years. The sand swirled for a moment, then settled. The engines turned off, and silence returned. Tarin opened the ship's ramp and stepped out. The sun was rising. The golden light spread across the land. A few birds flew in the sky. Far away, he could see the small buildings of his town. He smiled. This was home. He packed a bag with the crystal, some beacon planet seeds, and a few printed pages. Then he walked toward the village. People gathered quickly. They had seen something strange in the sky. And now Tarin was walking back with a calm but serious look on his face. An older man named Admiral, who often fixed tools and machines, came forward. "Tarin, are you all right? Where did you go?" Tarin nodded. "I'm okay." But something amazing happened. He told them everything: how he found the ship, how it spoke to him, how he flew to Beacon Planet, and how the people there still remembered Earth. The villagers listened with wide eyes and quiet mouths. Some were amazed, some looked confused. A few even looked afraid. "You went to another planet?" a woman asked. "Yes," Tarin replied. "And they sent a message back for all of us." He opened the crystal and showed them a short message from Beacon Planet. A hologram of Ima, the kind leader, appeared and spoke gently. "We send greetings to Earth. You are not forgotten. We remember your courage. We hope to grow with you in peace." When the message ended, silence fell over the crowd. Then, slowly, a young girl clapped her hands. Others joined. Smiles began to appear. Rill stepped forward and put a hand on Tarin's shoulder. "You've brought something special," he said. "Maybe it's time we stop only looking down at the soil and look up again." In the days that followed, Tarin worked with the villagers. He shared what he had learned, the farming methods of Beacon Planet, their peaceful way of living, and their love for knowledge. Together, they planted the seeds he had brought. The soil was dry at first, but with care and water, small green sprouts appeared as soon. People from other towns came to see the strange new plants and to hear the story of the flying ship. Tarin welcomed them and shared everything openly. A group of builders offered to help him repair the old observatory tower. Near the edge of the village, it had been broken for years, but now they wanted to fix it. They placed the crystal inside and turned it into a memory hall, where anyone could come and watch the stories from Beacon Planet. Children came every day, asking questions about space and stars. Tarin taught them what he had learned. He didn't have all the answers, but he had hope, and that was enough. One evening, as the sun set, Tarin sat outside the halcyon wind. The ship still rested in the desert, but now it was clean and shining. People no longer saw it as a strange machine. They saw it as a gift. Voros spoke gently. "You've done well, Tarin. The people are listening." Tarin nodded. "I didn't do it alone. The ship, the Admiral's memory, Beacon Planet, all of it came together." "Do you plan to fly again?" Voro asked. "Maybe one day," Tarin replied. "But first, I want Earth to wake up a little more." The stars began to appear in the sky, one by one. They were no longer just distant lights. Now, they were destinations, places with stories, places with people. Tarin leaned back and smiled. The journey had changed him, but more importantly, it had begun to change the world around him. The past had been sleeping for a long time, but now it was awake, and so was the future. Weeks passed after Tarin's return. Life in the village had started to change. People were no longer just farming or repairing tools, they were dreaming. They were asking questions about the stars, about other planets, and about the lost history of Earth. Taran had become someone they trusted, not because he was powerful, but because he was honest. He never claimed to be a leader. He only said he wanted to share what he had learned, and the people listened. One morning, while sitting outside the memory hall, Taran saw a group of visitors arriving. They had traveled from faraway towns. Some came on foot, others by solar carts. Many carried small notebooks and old devices. They had heard stories about a ship in the desert and a man who had returned from the stars. An older woman stepped forward and greeted Taran with a kind smile. "I am Lonnie. I teach children in the Eastern Valley. We heard you found something that remembers Earth." Taran nodded and led her inside the memory hall. He placed the crystal from Beacon Planet into the projector. A soft blue light filled the room as a 3D image of a village from Beacon appeared, people laughing, children learning under trees, and simple machines helping farmers. As the visitors watched, their eyes lit up. Some smiled, others looked thoughtful. "I didn't know humans ever lived like that," said one man. Taran explained how Beacon Planet had chosen to stay small and peaceful instead of growing too fast. They survived the silence because they cared more about learning and helping each other than building bigger machines. After the presentation, people stayed to ask questions. They wanted to know more about the ship, about Admiral Rillen, and about the other old colonies in the stars. Taran answered each question as best as he could. He also promised to keep sharing everything he learned. That evening, as Taran walked back to the halcyon wind, he heard Voro's voice. "You have become a bridge between Earth and the stars." Taran smiled. "I didn't plan it. It just happened." "Sometimes," said Voro, "the best leaders are the ones who do not seek power but choose to serve." The next day, something unexpected happened. A signal came through the ship's system. It was not from Earth or Beacon Planet. It was weak and broken, but it carried a simple message. "Is anyone there? We are survivors. Need help." Taran quickly asked Voro to trace the source. After a few minutes, Voro found it. "The signal is coming from Lyra Station, a small human outpost near the edge of the old star routes. Last known contact 482 years ago." Taran stared at the screen. "They're still alive, possibly," Voro replied, "but their signal is unstable. Their systems may be failing." Taran knew what he had to do. "Prepare the ship. We're going." Voro responded at once. Flight path set. Travel time 4 days with 1 refuel stop. Taran gathered a small team of volunteers: Ril the repairman, Lonnie the teacher, and 2 young helpers named Philo and Mira. They were nervous but excited. For the first time in generations, people from Earth were going into space not just to explore, but to help. The villagers watched the ship lift into the sky once again. This time, they didn't feel fear. They felt pride. As the halcyon wind moved through space, the crew learned how to use the ship's basic controls. Voro taught them how to read star maps and check energy levels. Taran guided them with patience, just like Voro had once guided him. On the 3rd day, they reached a quiet zone near Lyra Station. There were broken satellites floating nearby, and small pieces of old machines drifting like dust. The station itself looked worn and damaged, with only a few lights blinking. "They're still sending a signal," Voro confirmed, "but it's weak." The ship slowly approached and connected with the station's main door. Taran and the team wore protective suits and entered carefully. The halls inside were dark and cold, but there were signs of life: handwritten notes, working lights in small rooms, and warm air flowing from a backup generator. A door opened, and a tired voice spoke. "You're not from here." An old man stepped out. His clothes were patched, and his hair was gray. Behind him stood a few others, thin, quiet, but alive. Taran nodded. "We're from Earth. We found the signal. We came to help." Tears filled the man's eyes. "We thought Earth had forgotten us." The survivors of Lyra Station had lived in silence for many years. Their ancestors had stayed behind after the old travel routes closed. They had lost contact with the other colonies and believed they were alone. Food was grown in small greenhouses, water was recycled, and knowledge was passed down by memory. Tarin and his team gave them medical kits, new power cells, and seeds from Beacon Planet. Merle helped fix broken systems. Lonnie taught the children how to read again. Mira and Philo cleaned the halls and shared stories from Earth. After 2 days, the people of Lyra Station smiled again. Their lights were brighter, and their hearts were lighter. Before leaving, Tarin placed a small communication relay in their main control room. This will let us talk again. You're not alone anymore. As the halcyon wind left the station, the crew looked back through the window. The station was still old and quiet, but it had hope now. On the way home, Lonnie said softly, "We didn't just bring supplies, we brought connection." Tarin agreed. That's what humanity lost before. Not power, not machines, just the feeling of being together. Back on Earth, the news of Lyra Station spread quickly. People from many towns came to hear the story. They no longer saw space as a faraway dream. Now, they saw it as something they could touch, feel, and share. And Tarin? He stood quietly near the halcyon wind, looking up at the stars. He knew this was just the beginning. There were more signals to hear, more voices to answer, and more lost lights waiting to shine again. Rin stood on the desert plain beside the halcyon wind. The sun was rising, casting a warm glow over the sand and the ship. Behind him, the small village buzzed with life. People were building new homes, planting fields, and looking up at the sky with hope. For the first time in centuries, Earth was waking up. Tarin remembered the long journey, the ship buried in sand, the distant planet that never forgot, the lonely space station that still called for help. Each step had brought more light to a world once darkened by silence. But now, he knew the true journey was just beginning. Inside the ship, Voro's calm voice broke the quiet. "Tarin, I have received multiple signals from deep space, unknown. Worlds, new voices, some faint, others stronger. The network of humanity may be ready to awaken." Tarin looked at the stars shining above. "Then it's time to listen carefully and to speak with kindness." The people of Earth had learned many things over 500 years. They learned patience, care, and the power of small steps. They had lost fast travel and giant cities. But they had found something more important, the desire to connect. Tarin gathered a group of helpers, young and old. They were farmers, teachers, builders, and dreamers. Together, they prepared the halcyon wind for its next mission. This time, it was not just about survival. It was about reunion. Before they left, the council of the village met under the stars. "We stand at a new beginning," Martin, the elder, said softly. "For centuries, we believed the stars were lost, but they are waiting for us. The universe is not empty. It remembers us." Ema, from Beacon Planet, "Send a message through the crystal relay." Her words reached the village clearly. "Together, we are stronger. Together, we can rebuild. The past is our guide, but the future is ours to create." Tarin smiled. "We will carry this message with us." The halcyon wind lifted slowly from the desert floor. Its engines hummed like a heartbeat. The ship moved beyond Earth's atmosphere, toward the endless night filled with stars. On board, Tarin checked the ship's systems. The holographic map showed points of light, human colonies, stations, and worlds still alive after centuries of silence. One by one, they reached out to these places. Some signals answered quickly, full of joy and surprise. Others were slow or quiet, but always there. It was like waking a giant from a deep sleep. Each new contact brought stories of survival, of hope, of quiet lives far from Earth. But connected by memory, the old divisions between planets and worlds began to fade. People realized they were part of something larger. One day, as they approached a planet called Solara, a bright light shone from its surface. The crew felt a strong energy, a welcome like none before. Tarin spoke softly. "This is what we were meant for, to find each other again, to build bridges, not walls." As they landed on Solara, people came forward with open hands and open hearts. They shared food, music, and stories. The old fears melted away in the warmth of new friendship. Back on the halcyon wind, Tarin looked at the stars and thought about Earth, the quiet village, the growing fields, the children learning about the stars. He realized that Earth had never been alone. The stars had always been waiting for them to remember. The ship's AI spoke once more. Admiral Raylan's mission is alive, Tarin. The dream of connection and peace continues. Tarin nodded. And it will continue as long as we listen and care. The journey ahead was long, and there would be challenges. But the people of Earth were ready. They carried a light that had been waiting to shine for 500 years. Together with their friends across the stars, they would write a new story, a story of hope, unity, and the power of humanity. And somewhere deep inside the vast universe, the halcyon wind sailed on, carrying the past, the present, and the future of a people who refused to be forgotten.